Welcome to the first of many episodes of the Archotechs, a RimWorld fluid ideology series about three immoral siblings and their quest for self-immortalization in their pursuit of the Archonexus. Before we embark, I'd like to explain the origin of this series and what to expect throughout. I published a form for my Patreon patrons which allowed them to vote on what sort of ideologies they'd like to see as a series. From there, I created a few concepts and published a public poll, and as one might imagine, the Architects won that poll. Throughout this series, we will explore many of the game mechanics of RimWorld ideology, and when we happen upon a new complex game mechanic, I'll accompany the episode with an additional YouTube video that will explain the game mechanic in a bit more depth. To accompany this first episode, a link to a video that goes over the details of fluid ideologies can be found at the top of this video's description. As a community, we will occasionally be faced with opportunities and choices. When a significant choice needs to be decided, I'll publish a public poll on the options, thereby allowing you, the audience, to significantly shape the outcome of this series. With the preface now covered, allow me to introduce to you the three immoral siblings and how they found themselves adrift upon desert sands. The eldest of the trio, Trustin, industrious and with an expansive memory, he constructs and crafts with unbridled passion, leaving little time for slumber. The middle sister, Bunny, yearns for blood sport. Unparalleled in combat, fleet of foot, and battle-hardened, her yearnings are usually thoroughly fulfilled. Sven, a few years younger than his siblings, has an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. His cheerful disposition belies his concealed desire for power. Before we start, let's go over some of the rules and guidelines I'll be following throughout this series. The storyteller will be Cassandra Classic, losing his fun. I would also like for all of you to know that this series was voted that I will roleplay a lawfully evil society. So, the Architects are evil, and they've founded their own colony to serve their own selfish desires for power and glory. This series will incorporate slavery, executions, and gladiatorial duels to the death. Our trio are seeking the Archonexus, a new way to win in RimWorld. Without going into too much detail, when seeking the Archonexus, you are allowed to bring up to 5 characters from your colony each time you progress towards victory. 3 of those 5 slots are reserved for our trio founders. If any of them die, those slots stay empty. If all 3 of the trio die, the scenario is lost. Our trio also wants to ascend to high royal ranks, so we must stay neutral or allied with the Shattered Empire at all times. And if we ever become hostile, the top priority is to become neutral or allied again. We're starting off as a slightly modified rich explorer, having 3 colonists instead of 1 and without the initial pet. All of the rules and campaign parameters can be found in the video description, as well as the save game file, so that you can play along if you'd like. Most of the rules and parameters were determined by public polling, and if you'd like to participate in that process, please consider joining Discord, where I primarily post my polls and forms. The link may be found in the video description. Let's get started. So here we are, upon desert sands, cast out of the Shattered Empire for our beliefs, our selfishness, our evil. The first thing I want to do is to analyze the map tile that we're on. We are located at Desert Temple. Desert Temple is right around the equator. As you can see, it's only 439 north. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, if you'd like the save game file for this, it is in the description. Taking a look at the map tile, this is a 300 by 300 desert tile. With the introduction of breacher raids, I find it important to build somewhere near the center to give you the most time to be able to react to a breacher raid. And right around the center, there's this beautiful swath of soil. I'm going to use this, of course, for my initial colony. The first thing I do is go to orders, allow, and unforbid all items. This will set all of my belongings able to be interacted with. And I'll set Bunny to go grab the charge rifle. This is a slightly modified Rich Explorer start with 3 people instead of 1, but they only get 1 gun. I also removed the pet. Now, if we take a look at our ideology, we do have slavery as honorable. So that is something that we're going to want to address sooner than later. Let's go to the work priorities. I usually set firefight, patient, and basic as highest. Doctor, warden, and everything else just 1 or 2 steps less priority. So there we go. And that is the work priorities. The first thing I want people to do, Sven, I would like you to plant a nice, large field of potatoes. This is going to help us stay fit and fed. If you take a look at the wildlife tab, there is not a lot of wildlife here, so it's going to be very important to feed ourselves. Bunny, you are a miner, so I'm going to have you start chipping away at this compacted steel mountain of things. And then Trustin, you are a constructor. The initial colony I'm laying out here is only the starting colony. I don't intend to live like this for very long. This is just the basic one for the initial start, and that is it. So it's going to be an 11, that's 11 by 12. It's going to be an 11 by 11 little box with sort of an attached 7 by 7 here. Maybe offset a little bit. An attached 7 by 7 kitchenette. Very, very basic. And the reason being, right now, I just need to put together some sort of shelter, some basic shelter to keep safe. But then eventually I'll be laying out more castle-like structure. So in this structure goes some steel walls. Build them all in. A door to the kitchenette, I'll put here. A door to the whole structure, I'll put there. This kitchenette is going to have a cooler and an electric stove. But these structures here are going to be temporarily forbidden. I'm going to focus more on the rest of the structure first. So this is more of a plan. Then in here, we are going to want a research bench. And I'll put that there. Let's get a steel table and steel stools. Not very comfortable, but affordable. A horseshoe pin. Let's move that over one, or move that here. And then a chess table. Accompanying with this, some beds. Let's see, maybe like that. And then a stockpile for the stuff I want to keep inside. I'll name this stockpile. Now in this stockpile, I don't want to put raw resources except for plant matter and wood. And then I'll have a stockpile outside for raw resources. And this will have all raw resources except for plant matter and wood. The inverse. Well, that's enough to start on, so let's get our trio moving. As you can see, they are all siblings, and as such, they have a bit of a positive relationship with one another, which is going to be helpful. Now, to power this base here, I'm going to have it be wind power. One of the advantages of wind power is there aren't a lot of trees in the desert, so there's not a lot of stuff that can block your wind turbines. Looking good. One of the challenges is that we're starting off as supremacist, and this was voted on by a poll. And what this means is that all of our potential allies are going to like us a whole lot less by default. If you take a look here and mouse over the relationship, our natural goodwill with the Empire of the Moon, we're supposed to keep a good relationship with, is -60. -10 is due to the fact that they are loyalist, and -50 is due to the fact that we are supremacist. Maybe that is why we got kicked out of the Shattered Empire. But here's their ideology: male supremacy, loyalist, collectivist. And I guess let's go with Bunny was like, you know what? This male supremacy is BS. I'm out. And she pulled the ripcord and her loyal siblings followed suit. It also means that doing the Archonexus, which requires us to ally occasionally, as you will find out, is going to be a little bit more challenging because, of course, we have a bad relationship to begin with. But that's all part of the challenge. Now, we are rich explorers, which gives us the ability to immediately unlock gun turrets. Steel gun turrets kind of suck. So let's scour the map tile for materials that are better than steel. So we have some gold here. I'm just going to put a plan down just to indicate that there's something of importance. We have some uranium. Very good for mini turrets. And some plasteel. Now, it seems to me like I have a very limited amount of plasteel and a lot more uranium than plasteel. So I'm probably going to make my mini turrets out of uranium. Both uranium and plasteel are not flammable. Steel is flammable. So if you make mini turrets out of plasteel or uranium, they cannot burn, and therefore they aren't vulnerable to fire. And then additionally, they have more hit points than steel ones. Plasteel is better than uranium, but it's also more valuable than uranium and used in a lot more recipes than uranium. For those reasons, I will reserve the plasteel for important things and the uranium for the mini turrets. So once Bunny has mined up enough steel to get our colony started, I will pivot and have her mine that uranium for security. Now, it says I need a research project, and I am going to have Sven start researching right away, and he's going to research gas operation. Gas operation is going to allow me to make SMGs, heavy SMGs, and that will give Sven and Trustin weapons, because currently they don't have any, and that's a bit of a problem. If I get attacked, it's really up to Bunny to do all of the defense, and that's not really a comfortable situation to be in. So with Sven researching, Trustin is going to be our farmer once he's done constructing. But he's not going to be done constructing for a bit. There is a lot of construction to do. Other things that I want him to do is to set up a butcher table. Let's set that up. I want to set it up here, but I have to move those chunks first. But I'm not going to start doing any of the butchery until I have a cooler set up, because I don't want the very, very few creatures that exist out here to spoil. It's going to be important to make sure we preserve their meat and cook them. Now, Bunny is a bit of a cook, so she'll be able to make some decent meals for us. But I think what I want to do is to try, if possible, to not cook anything less than fine meals, just to stretch our meat as far as it can go. So simple meals I'd like to make out of vegetables, but I don't know how realistic that is. We'll see. I left a little hole over Sven so that he has light level. It's brightly lit here. I know it doesn't look like it, but there's a little gap in the roof. And then Trustin, I want you to build this wall to have this be inside, and that will speed up the research speed. Great. It looks like it's recreation hour for our trio. Maybe not Trustin, but everybody else. All right, now that that's built, let's unforbid this area here. And then once they're done playing horseshoe pins, I'll have them make some space for the butchery. So this zone here is going to be called Butchery. And the Butchery zone will be disallow rotten, disallow chunks, no human corpses, no mechanoid corpses, no insect corpses. So just animal corpses that are fresh. In the kitchen here, this is a very small kitchen, but I'm going to lay out some basic stockpiles for it. Let's call this zone Kitchen. And the kitchen is going to be preferred for all foods minus pemmican, chocolate, kibble, insect jelly, fertilized eggs, no raw fungus, no human meat, insect meat, or packaged survival meals. Here, this will be kitchen leaves, and this is just for psychoid leaves, which we won't have for a while. And this will be set to important. Here will be kitchen meat, and this will be set to all meat, except for, of course, human and insect. And then this stockpile, kitchen veg, which will be all vegetarian minus raw fungus. The reason I'm leaving raw fungus out is our ideology sees fungus as despised or disgusting, and I don't want to include it in the stockpiles. And then this last one is kitchen meals, and this will be preferred for all meals minus packaged survival meals. Packaged survival meals don't need to be in there because they don't need to be refrigerated. They're totally fine. They're preserved. Alright, so Trustin has a lot more to build, but here's our first wind turbine to turn the lights on our colony. And we have a tiny little barracks full of good beds and the kitchenette coming together. So this butchery table here will be butcher creatures forever that are close to the table. And then take insect corpses off of that list. All right, a good first day. Once I have the freezer set up, I will be hunting the dromedary and iguanas, and then eventually ostrich and emu. Ostrich and emu are far more likely to violently attack me as a result of their, being hostile to hunting. Having Trustin haul things into the stockpile. It's a little strange to keep our gold out there, so maybe I'll put the gold in this stockpile here as well. Just because it's more valuable and more likely to be stolen. So now Trustin is waiting for Bunny to mine steel so that he can continue constructing. And while we wait for that... Oh, that is going to get short-circuited due to the rain. So let's put a roof over it. There we go. While we wait, he is helping to farm. I'm going to turn on automatic rebuild of destroyed structures in the home area. I do have auto home zoning still, and I'm fine with auto home zoning for now. I might change that in the future. So now that we have a freezer, I'm going to lower the temperature down to freezing temperatures. Let's go to 20 Fahrenheit or -7 Celsius. And then that's going to allow Bunny to start hunting. So as soon as Trustin builds this piece of the wall, this indoor area is going to start to freeze, and we will be allowed to hunt. I just didn't want to spoil any animals before I was ready. There we go. So Bunny, let's go after the dromedaries. They're the most resource-rich targets that we can go after. Sven is still working on gas operation. Now, there's no point in having gas operation without having a machining table, so that will be another thing that I want to build once Bunny has the steel, has mined the steel for it. And I'm also going to close this door so that wild animals can't eat my pack of survival meals, because I have a limited amount of them and I don't want to waste them by having them eaten by critters. Good shot, Bunny. I'm going to temporarily micromanage Trust in here to work on the sort of dumping stockpile. This dumping stockpile will give us a little bit of cover if raiders come, but obviously not as good cover as having a giant turret. So this dumping stockpile should not include corpses. I don't know why Bunny put that there, but it's fine for now. And we're starting to get a little bit of a brownout. I don't have battery research yet. I still want to get guns before batteries. I know that seems a little strange, but protection is paramount. But I can add additional wind turbines to help increase the amount of power that I produce on average. Now, taking a look around, there's other things that Trusting could be doing instead of sowing, which would be to break down ruins for the resources. But honestly, there's not a lot of ruins to be had out here. This is pretty ruin-free map tile. But we'll see how much steel I can get from that. So seeking the Archonexus, we are going to need to accumulate a ton, and I mean an actual ton of wealth. And in order to do that, what I consider probably the easiest route is to make art and clothing. I don't have any artists in the colony, so that's one thing to try to add, is someone that is extraordinarily good at art. But for now, clothing is going to be where it's at. So Sven will be unlocking armors for us, for then Trustin to craft, and Bunny to likely use. So there goes the 3 dromedaries. It's warning me that I'm going to need warm clothing. So that's at the top of my mind. I'll want to get an electric tailor bench made as well. So one thing I will say is it doesn't make that much sense to have the meals so far from where we eat them. So I will move this over a bit, I suppose, and readjust. But let Trustin do the barely any construction that he is doing. I guess that's really the only 2 steel that I needed. So it's fine. Okay, doubled the power. I'll start micromanaging them a little bit more. And in a moment, I'm going to want to assign some roles. Roles is, of course, part of ideology, and roles are going to allow my people to do certain things. So, the first role that I want to roll out is going to be leader. Let's begin a role change now that we have some basic setups. And the prime architect is going to be Sven. I actually didn't need everybody to be in attendance. If you wanted to min-max this, it makes the most sense to have only one person in attendance, because that's all you need. But because they're siblings, I do, in fact, want everybody in attendance. Now, Sven is now the leader of this little community, the youngest, but the leader. And then Trustin is going to become, or actually, Bunny is going to become the prophet. So change Bunny to be the Arctic prophet. I do have another role called Guardian, but I don't intend for the original 3 to ever be a Guardian. Not likely. And the reason for this is the Guardians have a severely restricted amount of... oh, that's not what I meant to click. Oh well. A severely restricted amount of work that they're allowed to do. And I would find it to be a little prohibitive to have any of them be a Guardian. But perhaps when we add additional people to the colony, I will have them queue up for guardianship. I meant to hit work drive and give Bunny work drive, but oh well. Hey, we have our first visitor. Orange Eel. An excavator. Taking a look over here, there is some overhead mountain, which will trigger infestations if I am not careful. So, gotta keep an eye on that. And Sven, before you go to sleep, let's see what Eel has to trade. Not much. I'm gonna let Eel go without trading. This dromedary here is going to spoil soon, so it's in our best interest to move it to where Bunny can butcher it. Once Trustin's done stripping up all this steel here, I'm going to be setting him back up to do more farming. A lot of manual labor for very little steel. But in the end, I think it will yield positive results. Bunny, now that you're done with that steel, is going to go for the uranium so that I can get some mini turrets. So let me go ahead and remove the plans here so I can see where I'm mining. And then once I have uranium, I'll have Trustin manufacture some uranium mini turrets for defensive purposes. Now, I don't really have a perimeter yet, and I probably am not going to make a perimeter around the base until I have stone. I don't really have any interest in having a metal perimeter that can burn. Anything flammable is very impermanent, in my experience. So there's the last of the potatoes sown. And now Trustin is going to go cut down some cacti for the wood. And we have a mad iguana coming towards us. Alright, so Bunny, let's go ahead and haul this uranium back so you can kill the iguana before it causes harm to anyone. Don't really have an interest in getting nibbled or bit too early. And let's set up our first uranium turret, and I will put it here for... Actually, let me move it out a little bit. Put it right there. And for this to work, we're going to need to run some conduit within the base. And it's dead. Now, another thing I should be doing is trying to keep this as clean as possible. I haven't put in a floor yet because without going too deeply into game mechanics, floors produce filth. Simply put, I will get a floor in there eventually, but not right now. All right, so Bunny is back to getting the uranium ore. And then, speaking of flooring, I'm going to sow some cotton while Trustin has downtime. This is a good amount of uranium and will yield several turrets. Several non-flammable turrets. So if we take a look here, this turret here has a flammability of 0. You can just type flammability now. Flammability of 0. And 250 hit points, which is up from the default of the steel mini turrets. I wonder if it tells you here. Yeah, of 100. So, tougher and cannot burn. Definitely worth it. And with that in mind, let's get another. I'm spreading them out more than 3 tiles apart because when a turret explodes, they take everything out within 3 tiles of it. So putting things within 3 tiles is a recipe for losing turrets. And now that I'm using a lot of my components, I will get Bunny to mine up the compacted machinery. So these turrets here can turn on and turn off using the reconnect. Now that's assuming, of course, that enemies come in from this side, but I can always move the turrets around. I can move them over here or down there, especially if I surround my initial base with steel. That way, any corner of my base can have a turret installed and powered on. Now there is one flaw. If there's very low wind power during an attack, I'm sort of unprotected. And that's something I'm going to want to remedy in the long run by adding batteries once Sven's done. But next up is the machining table. So we'll have Trustin do that because everybody should have a gun in the community, not just the primary shooter for protection's sake. So the heavy SMGs will be the gun of choice. But I'm going to keep this initially off so it doesn't draw power away from anything more important. Not until Sven is done researching. Now another thing to note is I want to fill in some of these areas that have overhead mountain with probably stone. So I'm going to go ahead and get a stone cutting table. Plop that in there as well. And that's going to allow us to cut some of the limestone around and then fill it in because I don't want it flammable ever. So let's make limestone blocks. I only really need to make them once initially or twice. I lied. Twice, and that will allow us to fill that in. And now Bunny's going back to the uranium ore. After I get a little bit more uranium, I'm going to want more steel because I'm pretty low on steel already. And here's the brownouts. For infestations to spawn, they require overhead mountain tiles. So if you just fill it in so that there aren't any, you won't get infestations. So that's what I'm doing there. We are down to 12 survival meals, down from 40. I would like, ideally, to eat a mix of meat and veg, but we'll see if that is possible. It may not be. And gas operation is done. So now the gas operation is done. Let's go queue 2 heavy SMGs and power this back on. Now the SMGs will take a considerable amount of our steel and components, which is exactly where Bunny comes in. helping to replenish that. So that's the remaining of the uranium. 64, bringing us our total up to 133, which is enough for 4 more uranium turrets once we have the steel to accompany it. Moods around the colony are a little low. So if we take a look at Sven, what does his needs? The psychic droner is really hurting him. Not having slaves in the colony, also not doing him justice. And then sleeping in the cold, and that we can solve relatively easily. Let's start to work on battery research, though, rather than have him sweep up the floors. And here, a little bit more compacted steel. Now the closest steel other than this node here might be this one. Or this. Or that. Maybe here, perhaps. Got to figure out where I'm getting my next research, or resources rather. And Sven's just keeps plugging away at the battery research. Vitally important for us to keep the lights on, because the variability of wind turbines, too unreliable. And getting the heater going so that we can mitigate as much of the mood penalties as I can. The droner should go away on its own soon. Other things that are a problem, obviously, is disturbed sleep or not having slaves in the colony, and those will be solved in due time. And here we go. We have even more overhead mountain, which will need to be filled in. So Trustin's first SMG is excellent, and he'll grab it for himself. This gun, let me drop it just a second, has the wonderful art. This weapon bears a artwork of Bunny Architect, striking compacted steel with a look of surprise. Bunny is jumping for joy. The style is impressionistic with minimalistic elements. The image tells the story of Bunny striking compacted steel just yesterday, which was some of the material that went into this gun, I think. And here comes the other one. Hopefully it is also excellent. Now you get statistical bonuses, significant ones, for Masterwork and Legendary. But initially, we're going to be doing probably Excellence only, as Masterwork and Legendary are much harder to come by. Trustin has a chance for Masterwork, but pretty much no chance at all to make a Legendary one. And our first raid. Brio people. Taking a look at Alo Serba, a jogging, nimble shooter. Possibly someone I want to recruit. Quite a name. Quite an unpronounceable name. So if this is someone that I possibly want to recruit, I need some sort of basic prison cell. So Trustin is the man for that job. And there we go. 4 prisoners. Now this here, she is jogger and nimble, so she'll be hard to melee. But she will not be able to outrun a charge rifle. Hopefully we won't kill her, though. Hopefully. It looks to me like we'll need some additional limestone blocks to fill that in. And I'm just buying my time because she'll come to us. I don't need to go to her. But, my friends, that will be for next episode. Thank you so very much for watching the very first episode of the Archotechs. If you have any feedback for me, please let me know in the comments below. If you would like to chat in real time about the Archotechs, Rhadamant.com has my link to Discord. It also has my schedule, so if you're wondering when the next episode is going to come out, Rhadamant.com is the resource for you. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you tune in next time. Farewell, everybody.